The phone rang while I was eating chicken with my son Robert. My cleaning helper Rosa sounded scared. "Miss Patricia, there's a big truck at your house and a lady inside with your keys. If you like this video, press the like button and tell me what country you're from." My spoon fell and made a loud noise on Robert's table. My son and his wife Linda looked at me with big eyes. But I knew right away who would be brave enough to sneak into my home. My daughter Michelle. 8 months ago, I found out Michelle's plan to say I was too old and sick to take care of myself so she could take my money. My lawyer's son Robert helped me stop her fake doctor papers and her try to become my boss. But this was worse than I thought she would do. "Rosa, leave my house right now," I said in a strong voice that even surprised me. "Lock everything and go away fast." Rosa had gone back because she forgot her water bottle earlier. That mistake probably saved my whole house from being robbed. Robert was already getting his car keys. His face looked angry like a papa bear protecting his family. "Mom, what's wrong?" "Your sister is trying to take over my house," I said. My voice was calm, but I felt very mad inside. I couldn't believe it. Michelle had always wanted everything she saw, but breaking into my house was really, really bad. We drove fast through the cars on the street. I thought about how this all started. Marcus had been cutting my grass all summer long. Michelle said it would help me and give them extra money. That silly boy must have made extra copies of my house keys back then. He was planning this robbery for a long, long time. It was Marcus who did it. Michelle got married to that lazy man 8 months ago and she became different. Their money problems started when Marcus lost his job in May. But they didn't ask me to help them. They chose to be thieves instead of talking to family. "Look there," Robert said. His hands were holding the car wheel very tight. "Police cars." I had called 911 from the car and told them someone was stealing from my house. What I didn't say was that the thief was my own daughter. That detail was going to make tonight very interesting for the police officers. The big moving truck was sitting in my driveway like it belonged there. The back doors were open and I could see my own chairs and tables stacked inside like blocks. My special dishes, my grandma's old chair that rocks, the pretty picture of my late husband that hung near the front door. 2 police officers were standing on my front steps. They looked confused while talking to a woman whose voice I knew from far away. Michelle's voice. She sounded sure of herself, telling the officers this was just family confusion. Well, she was about to learn a lesson she would never forget. The look on Michelle's face when she saw me walking up to my own house with 2 more police officers was amazing. Her big smile went away for 1 second, then came back fake. My daughter was 35 years old and very good at looking innocent when doing mean things. Today was no different. "Mom," she yelled, waving like I just came back from buying groceries. Perfect timing. We were just moving in. Officer Garcia, a serious lady in her 40s, looked at Michelle and then at me. Her face was confused. "Ma'am, this woman says she's your daughter and you said she could be here." "My daughter. Permission." I took out my keys from my purse. My voice was steady even though I wanted to yell. "No way." Marcus came out of my front door carrying a box that said Sophie's Toys on it. He looked like he wanted to run away and hide. Behind him I could see my granddaughter Sophie, who is 9 years old, looking around the corner. She was holding her favorite stuffed bear tight. Seeing those kids in my house looking scared and confused made my heart hurt. This wasn't their fault. Officer Garcia walked closer with her serious face. "Ma'am, we need to check everything carefully before we arrest anyone. Can you show us this is your house?" I gave her my driver's card and my house papers. Both had my name and address on them clear as day. Michelle was whispering fast to Marcus. She didn't look so confident anymore. "Mrs. Wilson." Officer Kim started taking pictures of everything with his camera. "Can you tell us how your daughter got your house keys?" "Marcus cut my grass this summer," I said. I watched Marcus's face turn white like paper. Michelle said it would help them get money and help me keep my yard nice. He must have made extra keys back then. Marcus moved around like he wanted to disappear. Michelle gave him a really mean look before turning back to the officers. She looked desperate now. The thing is, Michelle said really loud, stopping her own quiet talk. Marcus lost his job in May and we got kicked out of our apartment last month. I'm my mother's only daughter, so I should get help when things are bad. Should get help. She really said those words like she had a right to steal my home. You can ask for help, I said slowly, making sure every word was clear. You can't just take it without asking. Officer Garcia talked into her radio for more police to come. Officer Kim kept taking pictures. The proof was everywhere, but I could see they wanted to be careful because this was a family problem. Michelle, Officer Garcia said in a firm voice. Do you have any paper from your mother saying you can come into this house or take these things? The quiet lasted so long it felt uncomfortable. Then Michelle finally told the truth. We don't need papers, Michelle said. Her voice sounded whiny like a little kid. This is just a family fight. My mother is 67 years old and sometimes she forgets things we talked about. Saying I was too old and confused made me feel ice cold inside. This was exactly the lie she had been telling for months. She was building a story that Robert and I had already stopped through the courts. Officer Garcia, I said calmly. 8 months ago my daughter tried to say I was too old to think right by lying. My son Robert, who works with law stuff, helped me get court papers to stop her. This break-in is probably connected to that plan that didn't work. Officer Kim looked up from his camera with new interest in his eyes. Do you have copies of those court papers? Robert, who had been watching quietly, stepped forward with his work bag. I have everything right here. Court orders that say she can't try this again, blocked doctor visits, and denied papers where she tried to become my mom's boss. Michelle's face went white like snow as Robert spread the papers on top of his car. The officers looked at them carefully while Michelle tried to fix her story. Those are just mix-ups, she said weakly. I was just trying to help my mom with her money stuff. By stealing her house. Officer Garcia asked in a dry voice that wasn't really a question. More police cars arrived as Michelle's story fell apart completely. One officer talked to the moving truck workers. They said Michelle Morrison had paid them to move stuff from her mother's house to a storage place. Ma'am, the boss officer talked to me directly. Based on what we see, we can arrest them for breaking in, stealing, and planning to steal together. But because there are children here, we want to be careful. Through my living room window, I could see Sophie and baby Max watching with scared faces pushed against the glass. My heart felt broken for them. Michelle and Marcus did bad things, but these children didn't do anything wrong. Officer, I want you to arrest them fully, I said strongly. But I also want to take care of my grandchildren for now. They don't need to suffer because their parents did bad things. Michelle's calm face finally broke into pieces. You can't take my children away. This is just family disagreement. Being someone's daughter doesn't mean you can rob them, Officer Kim said simply as he got his handcuffs ready. Arresting them took another whole hour. Michelle screamed about family helping family and how I should help my own kids no matter what. Marcus just stayed quiet with his shoulders drooping down like he was sad. As the police cars drove away with my daughter and son-in-law inside, I felt like justice was finally happening instead of feeling heartbroken. The universe was finally showing that what I knew for months was true. Michelle had gone way too far. Robert came over to me gently. Mom, are you sure about taking the kids? This could be for a long time. I looked at Sophie and Max, now holding each other in my doorway, and I knew exactly what had to happen. The emergency court hearing the next morning was like a whirlwind of social workers, court helpers, and serious-faced people trying to sort out the mess Michelle and Marcus created. Mrs. Wilson, Judge Anderson talked to me directly. Are you ready to take care of these children while their parents face criminal charges? Yes, Your Honor. They're my grandchildren and they need someone steady. Karen Lopez from Child Services had checked my house at 6 in the morning. She said my house was perfect for the children to live in. The other choice was foster care with strangers, which would be terrible. Sophie and Max sat quietly in the court with Linda, holding juice boxes and looking shocked. They had slept at Robert's house last night while I got bedrooms ready and tried to understand how big this was. Michelle's free lawyer, a tired-looking man who looked unhappy with his job, said Michelle should get bail and get her children back right away. Your Honor, my client was about to be homeless with 2 small children. What she did, while wrong, came from being desperate. Marcus's lawyer did something different. He blamed everything on Michelle to save Marcus. Your Honor, my client was forced by his wife into this plan. He's willing to tell the truth about Mrs. Morrison if you go easier on him. Judge Anderson listened but didn't look like she believed them. She looked at all the papers Robert had put together. The pattern of trying to trick me, the illegal key copying, and how carefully planned the invasion was painted a clear picture. Temporary emergency custody to the grandmother, she decided firmly. Both parents stay in jail until trial. Visits with the children only with supervision after they complete court-ordered counseling. As we left the courthouse, Michelle's cries echoed through the hallway. But for the first time in months, I felt peaceful instead of guilty about her being upset. Grandma! Sophie's small voice stopped my thoughts as we walked to my car. Are we going to live with you now? For a while, sweetie. Until everything gets fixed. Max, who always understood things better than his 9-year-old sister, asked the harder question. Are Mommy and Daddy coming home? I buckled them into car seats I had put in that morning. Picked my words carefully. Your parents made some very bad choices and they have to face what happens because of that. But you're safe with me. What I didn't say was their parents might go to prison for years because of the serious crimes they did. These children might be with me for a very long time. Driving home to our home now, I saw that Michelle's desperate plan had backfired in a funny way. Instead of getting my money, she gave me something way more valuable. A second chance at being a mom, but doing it better this time. 3 weeks into our new life together, I found out something that shocked me. I was actually really good at being a full-time grandma. Not the visiting kind who gives them candy and sends them home hyper, but the real kind who makes lunches, helps with schoolwork, and knows exactly which voice to use when Sophie tried to avoid taking a bath. Grandma, why did Mommy take your stuff? Max asked one morning during breakfast. His spoon was making tiny circles in his cereal. The question I was afraid of finally came. How do you tell an 11-year-old that his mother is a calculating thief without destroying everything he believes in? Sometimes grown-ups make really bad choices when they're scared, I said carefully. Your mommy was scared about not having a home, but instead of asking for help the right way, she took something that wasn't hers. Sophie looked up from her toast. Like when Max took my doll collection. Similar, but way more serious because grown-ups know better. That explanation seemed to make sense to her. But Max's face told me he understood more than he was saying. 11-year-olds, I was learning, understand adult problems really well. My phone buzzed with a call from Detective Thompson. Different last name from us, thankfully. He had news about the ongoing investigation. Mrs. Wilson, we found more evidence that really changes how big this case is. Can you come to the station this afternoon? The evidence was papers showing Michelle's plan went way deeper than just a simple home invasion. She had been planning to take control of my money for over 20 months, looking up laws about old people being incompetent, talking to bad lawyers, and even trying to see my medical records to build a fake case that I had memory problems. She filed starting paperwork for emergency guardianship 4 weeks before the break-in, Detective Thompson explained, pushing papers across his desk to me. If you hadn't pressed charges, she would have used this incident to say you couldn't live alone anymore. How planned out it all was left me breathless. This wasn't desperation or bad judgment. This was planned out financial abuse with my own grandchildren as unwitting helpers. There's more, Detective Thompson continued with a grim face. We found proof she's been watching your bank accounts by lying and tricking people. Your bank is doing an internal investigation now. I drove home in a daze, trying to process how big Michelle's betrayal was. When I pulled into my driveway, Max and Sophie were waiting at the window with their faces pressed against the glass like excited puppies. Grandma, we made you a card, Sophie announced, running to meet me with a construction paper creation decorated with sparkles and crayon flowers. Welcome home, Grandma, was written in Max's careful writing, with Sophie's name scribbled underneath in purple marker. Looking at their innocent faces, I knew the truth. Michelle's biggest crime wasn't trying to steal my money. It was almost destroying these children's lives while doing it. The trial started on a cold Tuesday in December, exactly 5 months after the invasion. The courtroom was packed with newspaper reporters drawn by the exciting headline, "Grandmother arrests own daughter for home invasion." Michelle had fired her free lawyer and hired Angela Rivera, a respected criminal attorney who believed in taking responsibility instead of manipulation. It was the first smart choice she'd made in years. "Your Honor," Attorney Rivera told the court during opening statements, "my client takes full responsibility for what she did. She made terrible choices because of money desperation, but she's prepared to face consequences and make things right." The prosecution painted a picture of calculated elder abuse that made me squirm in my seat. While it was true, hearing my family's problems discussed for everyone to hear felt like being stripped naked in front of strangers. When they called me to testify, I walked to the witness stand with shaking hands and told the truth about years of manipulation, the incompetency threats, and the invasion of my home. But I also talked about the little girl who used to make me birthday cards, and the child who believed monsters couldn't get her if mommy was there. "Mrs. Wilson," the prosecutor asked, "in your opinion, was your daughter's behavior calculated or impulsive?" I looked at Michelle sitting at the defendant's table with tears running down her face, and I knew the answer. "Both," I said quietly. "She calculated how to take advantage of me, but she impulsively destroyed everything important in the process." Marcus had already accepted a plea deal, getting 3 years probation in exchange for testifying against Michelle. His betrayal seemed to break something in her during his testimony. She stared at him with a hollow expression of someone who finally realized she married a coward. The jury thought about it for 7 hours before coming back with guilty verdicts on all major charges: breaking and entering, theft, conspiracy, and attempted financial exploitation of an elderly person. Judge Anderson sentenced Michelle to 5 years in prison with possibility of getting out in 3 years. She also ordered full payment back for my stolen property and made both parents get counseling. As the bailiff led Michelle away in handcuffs, she looked back at me one last time. "Take care of my babies," she whispered. "I will," I promised and meant every word. But what I didn't expect was how much taking care of them would heal something broken inside me too. 20 months later, I stood in my kitchen watching Sophie carefully arrange her cereal by shape while Max practiced guitar in the living room. The sound should have driven me crazy. It would have driven the old me crazy, but somehow it had become the soundtrack of our peaceful life. "Grandma, do I have to keep going to therapy?" Max asked during breakfast, setting down his guitar with dramatic flair. The court had required counseling for both children to help them process their parents' arrest and abandonment. A reasonable requirement that had actually been hugely helpful. "Do you think you still need it?" I asked, pouring myself coffee. "Maybe. Sometimes I still get mad at mommy for being so dumb." The brutal honesty of children never stopped amazing me. Max had processed his mother's crimes with remarkable clarity, while Sophie, being younger, had adapted to our routine with typical 9-year-old toughness. My phone buzzed with a call I'd been expecting but dreading. Michelle had been granted early parole and wanted to see the children. "Mrs. Wilson, this is Michelle's parole officer. She's completed the required programs and has been approved for supervised visitation." My first instinct was to say no. We'd built a beautiful life together. Max was thriving in honors classes. Sophie had joined soccer. And I discovered that raising children at 69 was actually easier than it had been at 32. I had patience now, perspective, and the money security to give them opportunities I'd never been able to provide my own children. But I also remembered the broken woman in that courtroom finally accepting responsibility for her choices. "What are the conditions?" I asked. The meeting happened at the family court building under strict supervision. Michelle looked different, healthier somehow, despite her time in prison. She'd gained weight, her hair was neat, and her eyes held something I hadn't seen in years. Real humility. "Hi, babies," she said softly as Max and Sophie approached cautiously. "Hi, Mommy," Max whispered. But he stayed close to my side. Sophie, now 11 and much taller, seemed to barely remember her. "Are you coming home now?" Michelle's face crumpled. "No, sweetheart. Can't come home. I did something very wrong and I'm still paying for it." For an hour we sat in that cold room while Michelle apologized to her children, explained her actions in kid-appropriate terms, and promised to be a better person. The kids were polite but distant, treating her like a friendly stranger rather than their mother. "They don't really know me anymore," Michelle said quietly as we walked to the parking lot. "That's what happens when you abandon children," I replied, not unkindly, but with complete honesty. "I know I deserve this." She paused, struggling with words. "Mom, I spent 20 months in therapy learning to take responsibility. I was addicted to prescription pain medicine after my surgery 4 years ago. And instead of getting help, I got desperate. Everything I did to you, to the kids, it came from that desperation and addiction." This was the first I'd heard about addiction, but it explained so much about her increasingly weird behavior over the past few years. 7 months after that first supervised visit, Michelle had earned the right to weekly meetings at a family center downtown. She'd completed addiction treatment, found work at a nonprofit helping formerly jailed women, and was living in a small apartment with a roommate who kept her accountable. The transformation was remarkable but fragile. Max, now 13 and fiercely protective of Sophie, still watched his mother with wariness. Trust once broken so completely might never fully return, but respect that was growing slowly. "Mom saved our family," Sophie announced one Saturday as Michelle helped her with a school project about local heroes. "She could have let us go to foster care, but she didn't." I looked at Michelle, who was patiently helping her glue popsicle sticks into a house design, and saw tears in her eyes. "Your grandma did save you," Michelle said quietly. "And she saved me too, even though I didn't deserve it." That evening, after Michelle had returned to her apartment, Sophie asked the question I'd been expecting. "Is Mommy ever going to live with us again?" "No, sweetheart. This is your home now. But Mommy can visit, and maybe someday you can visit her apartment too." Max, wise beyond his years, nodded seriously. "I think that's better anyway. Mommy needs to learn how to take care of herself before she can take care of us." The insight was heartbreaking and accurate. Michelle was making genuine progress, but she'd lost the right to primary custody through her own choices. The children understood this instinctively, even if they couldn't say it in words. My phone buzzed with a text from Robert. "Mom, Linda and I have news. We're expecting. Think you can handle being a grandmother to 3 kids?" I laughed out loud at the absurdity. 5 years ago, I'd been a lonely widow whose daughter was plotting to steal her money. Now I was raising 2 preteens, rebuilding a relationship with their reformed mother, and about to become a grandmother again. Life, I'd learned, had a twisted sense of humor about second chances. "What's funny, Grandma?" Sophie asked, looking up from her homework. "Just thinking about how much our family has grown," I said, ruffling her hair. And it was true. We'd lost the toxic version of Michelle, but gained these amazing children and a chance for all of us to heal. Some families have to break apart completely before they can rebuild into something stronger. The day Michelle earned unsupervised visitation rights, exactly 3 years after her arrest, she sat in my living room, the same room where I'd once found her directing movers to steal my furniture, and told me the story of her transformation. "There was this woman in prison named Janet," Michelle began, her voice steady but quiet. "She was in for stealing from her elderly parents' retirement. One day she got a letter saying her mother had died and she wasn't allowed to go to the funeral because she was still serving time for stealing from her. Max and Sophie were at school so we could speak freely about the harsh realities of consequences. She completely broke down," Michelle continued. "Started screaming about how she'd destroyed everything that mattered for money she'd already spent. And I realized I was looking at myself 6 years in the future if I didn't change. It was the event I'd been waiting to hear about, the catalyst that had transformed my manipulative daughter into someone capable of genuine accountability. I tried to call you that night but you changed your number." So I wrote you a letter instead. 30 pages of apology and explanation that I never sent because I realized words weren't enough. I had to prove I'd changed through actions. I remembered getting a few letters forwarded through Robert's office, all of which I'd thrown away unopened. Perhaps I should have read them. The thing is, Mom, I spent so many years being jealous of your independence and strength that I tried to destroy you instead of learning from you. Even after Dad died, you had this grace, this ability to rebuild your life. I felt like a failure next to you. So you decided to tear me down instead of building yourself up? Exactly. And the pills made everything worse. They made me paranoid, desperate, willing to hurt people I loved. I convinced myself you owed me something because I was your daughter. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, two women who'd survived a war that had nearly destroyed our entire family. What do you want now? Asked finally. I want to earn the right to be in my children's lives. Not as their primary parent. I lost that through my own choices, but as someone they can respect and maybe eventually trust. And I want to make amends to you if you'll let me. Looking at this humbled, sober version of my daughter, I realized something profound. I didn't need Michelle's amends for my own healing, but maybe she needed to give them to complete hers. You can't undo what you did, I said gently. But you can prove you've learned from it. She nodded, accepting the boundary without argument. Progress. 3 years after that conversation, I stood in my kitchen watching Michelle help 14-year-old Max with algebra while 13-year-old Sophie played with her baby cousin in the living room. Robert and Linda's daughter had been born 7 months ago, and our Sunday family dinners had become beautifully chaotic affairs. I still don't understand why X equals 8, Max complained, erasing his work for the 4th time. Think of it like a scale, Michelle explained patiently. If you do the same thing to both sides of the equation, it stays balanced. Watching them work together, I felt a complex mixture of emotions. Pride in Max's academic excellence, satisfaction in Michelle's genuine effort to be helpful rather than intrusive, and deep contentment in the stable life we'd all built from the ashes of betrayal. The media attention had been intense for about 7 months after the trial. Millionaire grandmother Jael's own daughter had been tabloid gold, but I'd hired a publicist to protect the children's privacy and keep reporters away from their schools. Eventually, newer scandals had captured public attention. Michelle would never live in my house again. That boundary was permanent and non-negotiable. But she'd earned the right to be part of her children's lives, and more importantly, she'd become someone worthy of that privilege. Grandma, Sophie called from the living room. Can Michelle come to my soccer game next Saturday? I looked at Michelle, who was trying not to appear too hopeful. These small milestones, being included in normal family activities, meant everything to her recovery. If she wants to, I said simply. The smile that spread across Michelle's face was radiant and genuine. 3 years of consistent effort, therapy, and accountability had earned her this simple privilege: watching her daughter play soccer. My phone buzzed with a text from Max's teacher. Max has been selected for the gifted program's academic competition team. Congratulations. I showed the message to Max, who squealed with excitement before immediately asking, Can Mommy come to the competition? If she can get time off work, I replied, watching Michelle's eyes fill with grateful tears. These children were thriving in ways I'd never imagined possible. Stability, consistent boundaries, and unconditional love had transformed them from traumatized victims into confident, secure young people. Thank you, Michelle said quietly as she gathered her things to leave. She never overstayed her welcome, never pushed boundaries, always respected the structure we'd established. For what? For saving my children, for giving me the chance to earn my way back into their lives, for showing me what real strength looks like. As I watched her drive away to her modest apartment, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought us all to this point. 5 years ago, I'd been a vulnerable widow whose daughter was plotting to steal her independence. Now I was the fierce matriarch of a healing family, confident in my worth and secure in my choices. This morning, as I write this final chapter, I'm sitting on my back porch watching Max teach his baby cousin to wave while Sophie practices batting in the yard. Michelle is inside making sandwiches for our picnic, and Robert is setting up the outdoor games his wife requested for their daughter's first birthday party. At 73, I'm busier than I've been in decades, but also more fulfilled. These children, all 3 generations of them, have given me purpose that I never expected to find. My phone buzzes with a video call from my newest family member, Daniel, Robert's business partner, who married Michelle's former roommate from the halfway house 7 months ago. Our family tree has become wonderfully complicated as we've all learned to heal and grow together. Patricia, he calls from the screen. Are you ready for the birthday party chaos? I laugh, looking around at the beautiful chaos that has become my normal life. Bring it on. Michelle appears at my elbow with a plate of sandwiches. Mom, thank you for letting me be part of this. 5 years ago those words would have been manipulation. Today there's simple gratitude from a woman who's learned the difference between earning love and demanding it. You earned it, I reply, and she nods with quiet satisfaction. As the family gathers for our celebration, I think about the letter I'll write to other grandmothers facing similar situations. The letter that will tell them it's possible to love someone without enabling them, to set boundaries without abandoning family, and to find strength in saying no to behavior that hurts everyone involved. Michelle's greatest crime wasn't trying to steal my money or my home. It was almost preventing me from discovering who I was meant to be. The woman who chose love over resentment, boundaries over revenge, and healing over perpetual victimhood. The woman who learned that sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to participate in someone else's destruction. The woman who finally understood that her worth wasn't measured by her usefulness to others, but by her willingness to protect what mattered most. Today, watching my family laugh and play in the yard of the house Michelle once tried to steal, I know exactly who that woman is. She's me. Stronger, wiser, and surrounded by people who respect her because she first learned to respect herself. And that, dear friends, is the most valuable inheritance I could ever leave behind. As the sun sets on another beautiful day, I watch my grandchildren running through the sprinklers while Michelle and Robert set up the birthday decorations. Linda is nursing baby Emma in the shade, and Daniel is helping his wife carry the cake from the car. This is my legacy. Not the money Michelle tried to steal, not the house she tried to take, but this beautiful, messy, healed family that chose love over bitterness. We chose accountability over excuses. We chose second chances over permanent condemnation. And in doing so, we all became better versions of ourselves. Michelle catches my eye from across the yard and mouths, "Thank you," once again. I nod, acknowledging the gratitude but also the years of hard work it took to get here. Recovery isn't a destination. It's a daily choice. And Michelle is finally making the right choices, one day at a time. Sophie runs up to me, soaking wet from the sprinklers. "Grandma, come play with us," she shouts, grabbing my hand. Max joins in, pulling my other hand. "Yeah, Grandma, you're part of the game." And so I let these beautiful children pull me into their world of joy and innocence, leaving behind the pain of the past and embracing the gift of the present. As water splashes around me and laughter fills the air, I realize something profound. Michelle didn't just lose everything when she tried to steal my home. She lost herself. But in losing herself, she found the opportunity to become someone better. And I found the opportunity to show her what unconditional love with healthy boundaries looks like. That's the real story here. Not the dramatic arrest or the courtroom battles, but the quiet transformation that happened in the years that followed. The daily choices to show up, to be accountable, to earn trust back one small action at a time. As the party continues around me, I think about all the grandmothers out there facing similar situations. The ones being manipulated, stolen from, taken advantage of by their own children. I want them to know something important. Setting boundaries isn't cruelty. It's the highest form of love. Because sometimes people need to hit rock bottom before they can start climbing back up. Michelle needed to lose everything to realize what truly mattered. The children needed stability to heal and grow. And I needed to stand firm in my worth to show everyone what self-respect looks like. None of this would have been possible if I'd enabled Michelle's behavior. If I'd let her move in, if I'd dropped the charges, If I'd rescued her from the consequences of her choices, she would have continued down that destructive path, and these beautiful children would have suffered even more. Robert approaches me with baby Emma in his arms. "Mom, you did good," he says simply. And those 3 words mean more to me than any grand declaration could. 'Cause he's right. I did do good. Not by being perfect, not by being soft, but by being strong enough to let my daughter face the consequences of her actions while still loving her through it. The cake is brought out, candles are lit, and we all sing happy birthday to little Emma. Michelle's voice joins in, harmonizing with the rest of us, and I see tears in her eyes. These are the moments she missed with her own children. The birthdays, the everyday joys, the simple family gatherings. She gave all that up for a scheme that was doomed from the start. But she's here now, earning her way back into these moments, one supervised visit at a time. As the sun finally sets and families start packing up to leave, Michelle approaches me one more time. "Mom, I know I say this a lot, but I need you to understand something. What you did, pressing charges, taking the kids, refusing to enable me, it saved my life. If you'd let me get away with it, I'd be dead or in prison for something worse by now. The pills, the desperation, the entitlement, it was all leading somewhere dark." I pull her into a hug, something I couldn't do for years without feeling resentment. But now, I feel only compassion for the woman she's becoming. "You saved your own life, Michelle. I just refused to go down with the ship." She laughs through tears, understanding the truth in my words. As everyone drives away and I tuck Sophie and Max into bed that night, I reflect on the incredible journey we've all been on. From that terrifying phone call from Rosa to this moment of peace and healing. It's been 5 years of hard work, therapy, boundaries, consequences, and grace. But most importantly, it's been 5 years of choosing what's right over what's easy. Choosing accountability over enablement. Choosing healing over revenge. As I turn off the lights and head to my own bed, I smile. Because tomorrow we'll do it all again. This beautiful, messy, healed life we've built together. And that, my friends, is the real revenge. Not destroying the person who hurt you, but building something so beautiful from the ashes that it makes the pain worth it. Good night, and remember, you teach people how to treat you. Make sure you're teaching the right lesson.